Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't remember this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Jim,
What do you think the draft means in terms of recruiting capital? In here a short time, but can you see that?
Yeah, I think that that plays with recruits in terms of the history of the program. I mean, I think it's absolutely something that we can promote and talk about. I think year to year things change, but historically, if a guy's interested in playing in the NFL, we got what he's looking for, and we can back it up with numbers.
Right.
Jim, now that you've been through, the first spring here, what are the biggest things you look at that we need to accomplish over the next few months to get ready for the season?
I really have just been impressed with our whole process, from Coach Day to Coach Mick. We just need to stay the course. Those guys know what they're doing in terms of how to structure this time of year. Stay the course in that aspect, and from a defensive perspective, we need to just continue to meet whenever we have the chance, individually and groups when we're allowed. The schedule dictates all of that, but we'll take advantage of every opportunity we have just to have short meetings, again, to keep things fresh in their mind and maybe grow in some areas that we weren't able to touch in the spring.
Now that you've had a chance to look at the film from the spring, what do you think they most took away from what you were trying to implement here?
They were able to learn that we do a lot of things that, but it's simple, but yet it looks complex, and I think they were able to get into the heart of it and get excited about it and say, okay, we can show a lot of different looks, but it was easy for them to learn, so that it can be overwhelming in the beginning because it looks like a lot, but when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, they were able to follow along at a rapid pace, and that's a credit to our players too. I mean, they soaked it up and they really wanted to learn, and I think now they got a taste of how good the system can work.
From an installation standpoint, are you where you thought you'd be? Are you ahead of schedule? Where would you say you're at right now?
Yeah, I think we got accomplished more than I could have hoped for. I think our players were very open to the process, very eager to learn, and they picked things up at a rapid pace. I was really impressed with the guys we have in their football intelligence.
Jim, you talked a minute ago about the NFL draft. I'm curious, I know you've only spent the spring with Brian Hartline, but what are your impressions of him? Because he had 2 Buckeyes and 3 Jamison Williams who went in the first round. It's been a while since Ohio State had that. What are your impressions of Brian Hartline? What is his work ethic like? What makes him stand out for you?
He's great. I mean, he's the best in the country, and that shows up. There's a saying in our business, what you see is what you coach. So, there's nobody better than him in terms of the product that he puts on the field. I love the way he dresses. He's a snappy dresser, and he looks sharp, and he just looks like he'd want a great wide receiver coach and offensive coach to look, and I'm glad to be on his team.
Is there still a lot to sort out at linebacker for you?
Yeah, I think that in terms of the actual playing time, who's going to get the majority of the snaps. I think there's a lot of good candidates, but how that's all going to shake out in terms of who plays the most, who has some specialty things that they can do and help the team, packaging, where they could go. I still think there's a lot to be determined in terms of the actual snaps and rep counts that come up in the game.
This might be kind of a loaded question, but when you look at the offense on the other side of the ball, does this defense feel pressure to produce a national championship level defense right out of the gate?
No, we first of all, I don't think the players feel any pressure, and that's because they believe and they're confident, and they've seen how the whole system works and the quality of our program. the challenge for us is just to be the best we can be. I mean, that's all. If we're the best we can be, we'll be fine. So we just have to get better every day. That's what I say get better, they say every day. It's one of our sayings. They say it back to me. And that's all we have to worry about. So I don't think anybody's feeling pressure, just excited.
How do you make sure they get better every day when you can't see them every day? This is their first time away from you guys when they come back.
Right, you have to have faith. I try to tell them that they're Olympic athletes. I mean, they're the best of the best. So, you're right. A lot of that happens privately, and I have to trust that they're doing all the right things to keep making progress.
We saw Mitchell Melton suffer an injury in the spring game. Are you expecting him back for the fall?
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, I don't have the total answer on that, but he's a great kid, and I'm just sad for him.
What are some of the traits of your defensive philosophy that you're most proud of? I know you talked a lot about things like confusing the opposing offensive coordinator, confusing the quarterback, not making him feel comfortable. I'm sure toughness is a trait. What are some traits about the Jim Knowles defense that you're most proud of, that stand out the most?
I think the pursuit, and every defense wants to be great pursuing the football, but I call it smarts for them. I think our angles, guys understanding the field, understanding where their help is, that it's an 11-man game, and taking great angles to the football is something I think you can see when you watch a game. There's a right way and a wrong way to miss a tackle, because you will miss, but if you're on the right angle, good things can still happen. So I think the way that a fan or anyone can watch our defense just be in the right place, understand the plays they're getting. I think the way we adjust is a trademark of what we do. That if something's hurting us, that we fix it. And I think that's my job. I have to do that. And we have a system, and that's how we built it, so that we can adjust when we have to adjust. And then, I like to think of pressure as a trademark of the system, and that's not necessarily just through blitzing, but it's also through just making the quarterback take a little time, extra time to read, that it gives our guys a chance to rush. That's not my job. My job is to focus on this year. But I think you see that in the game of football, that the difference between the pressure or non-pressure is a half step. And when you have talented players, I think of it as my job, either through disguise or making the quarterback holding the ball, or freeing a guy up, giving him a head start. Those are all the areas that I have to work on to help our guys get in position.
In a way, your job is spending hours and hours and hours for us.
That's right. And that's what I call playing offense on defense.
Jack Sawyer, what do you expect out of him this year?
Everything. I expect Jack to be able to do everything, to be able to play any of the defensive end positions, to be able to play our Jack position, to learn the system well enough to move into that Leo role. I think he's got great potential. I like his attitude. I like his toughness. So I just expect him to continue the work he did in the spring and be great.
Same thing with JT Tuimoloau. What do you expect out of him, coach?
Everything. I mean, JT. These are guys that do not have limitations. They do not have limitations, and it's my job to grow them, to put them into the different positions to succeed, to be able to utilize their skills to the fullest. But there's no limits on their success.
Jim, when you take those two guys and then you have veterans like Zach coming back, want to start seniors probably in most cases, or at least they did on that spring game. You said afterwards it doesn't matter. How do you get guys to buy into that when I'm sure that they really want to just be a starter? That's an accomplishment.
Right. I know that's important, but I think when you're playing a lot of guys, which we plan to do, then being the starter just becomes an ego thing. When you're playing a lot of guys, and you saw it last year at Oklahoma State. Our leading sacker wasn't even the starter. So that's what I'm preaching and I'm selling, is the productivity. guys are having success, you know, that ego thing of who's the starter tends to be less important.
What did you see from Zach in spring?
I mean, I love Zach's attitude, his length. You know, I saw a lot of domination at the point of attack. You know, a guy who really holds point, and he's got a great personality, great energy, and he's going to be a great leader for us.
You talk about this thing. I couldn't hear his question.
Zach Harris.
Oh yeah. And Coach, how do you play that though with the older guys and stuff? Because like you said a while ago, starting is more of like maybe an ego thing more than anything else, but you want chemistry in that group and stuff. Are you the kind of guy that just lays out the way things are? This is the way things are. How do you approach those kind of like challenges?
Yeah, I don't. You're right. I just say this is what we're doing. You know, it's the greatest team game there is. I mean, you spend 365 days a year lifting weights and getting up at 6 a.m. and all that. We want to put on the field the best product that's going to help us win to deliver success. And I'm going to put you in position to be successful. That's my job, to make all that hard work come to fruition. So I just say this is the way it is. I don't even address that unless there's a specific. If a guy has a specific issue, then we'll sit down and talk about it. But otherwise, it's team. That's just the way we talk.
Can you give us a name or two, especially after watching the video from the spring scrimmage, etc.? But was there one guy that defensively just really jumped up the chart for you? That you hold him as like an example of making gains, making improvements, using the spring to its utmost from the standpoint of improvement, etc.
Yeah, that's difficult for me to do because I just got here, so and I tried to just have a completely open mind with where guys were at, because I didn't try to take into account anything from the past. But I would say because I work with them too a lot, Tommy Eichenberg, I thought did just a heck of a job. Because I threw a lot at him, and I'm very demanding on those linebackers to learn it right now. And I just thought he picked everything up. His football intelligence was great, and he seemed to really understand the system. And from start to finish, he figured things out.
I'm curious about some of the true freshmen that enrolled early for you guys on defense, like Caden Curry, C.J. Hicks, Jair Brown, some of those guys, Ryan Turner, Kai Stokes. Maybe did any of those guys stand out to you in a positive way?
Yeah, they all did. I mean, they all did. I mean, Kai had really made progress at the end there and in the spring game. But they all stood out in some way. I think it's a great crew, and I'm pretty demanding on those guys. And then every now and then I have to stop myself and say, oh, this guy shouldn't be at the senior prom right now. You know what I mean? That's the way. But I mean, I push on those guys too. And I thought they handled it well. The big thing was they were able to take coaching. They were able to take coaching. Aiden had a lot of great pass rushes, so they were able to take coaching. And when you have a young guy who can take coaching and has talent, you got a chance.
CJ, since he's in your room and you're around him, what'd you like about his spring?
He's still figuring things out because it's our linebackers, they're very multiple. It's not just, hey, you're in this place, you're doing that. You're doing a lot of different things, which is good for them when they go to the next level. But he's still figuring things out. But when he was able to cut loose and play fast, I was really impressed with his feet and his ability to get from point A to point B in short space, explosiveness. Really impressed with that.
Did you see the light maybe start to come on as practices went on?
Absolutely. Yeah, he really, you can see he got better from the beginning to end. And Gabe Powers, he worked extremely hard at learning too. So we throw a lot at those guys, but they did a good job of picking it up.
You mentioned the linebacker spot. I mean, looking at your defenses in the past, it seems like those guys, especially those outside backers, were kind of stat eaters. Like a lot of times they're in the middle of everything. And I'm curious, what makes that position valuable, especially with all the attention being on the jack and then this safety-driven defense and things like that? What makes a linebacker in your defense so valuable?
Well, he has to be multiple. The idea of being an inside or outside linebacker? No, because you're going to see them both inside and outside. You're going to see them in man coverage, in zone coverage. You're going to see them blitz inside. You're going to see them blitz outside. So a guy who has all kinds of football skills, one, that's important. But two, the mental understanding, and that's why they do get a lot of stats, because we put them in position to make plays, you know, and a lot of times we funnel things to them, you know, and the safeties, and they're there, and they got to get the job done, so they have to understand the scheme and where they fit.
Was that a new concept, like something that they were used to when you arrived, or is it something that they were like, okay, this is normal for me, but this is the way I like to do it?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them, but I think that they liked it, you know, because we talked a lot about free tackles, and that's a great thing for a linebacker, you know, because a lot of times you're going to have a chance to make that tackle without a blocker. That's what we want, right? That's good for a linebacker.
You spoke earlier, or after the spring game, about Kyle Stokes stepping up and stuff, and that's important for that room, almost from a number standpoint and anything else. Do you feel like you have a decent complement in the safety room?
Yeah, I mean, we have. I think we have some number issues there, right? I mean, I think there are there's going to be opportunities for a young guy like Kai to have immediate impact in the depth. So it was good to see him make progress, and we're going to need him to step up.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Did you leave the spring though with a solid two deep in your mind about at the safety spot?
At the safety spot?
Yeah. Could you?
I mean,
let us know.
I think it's just still a work in progress. So that's all I'm going to say.
Let me ask you
for the jack position. Obviously, there are people who are doing it now, but when you're looking for high school recruits, are you more likely to look at linebackers and turn into that, or defensive linemen? You're trying to recruit that position.
Yeah, a lot of times in high school, it's more of a linebacker type, because high schools they're going to play their D linemen are going to be bigger guys, you know, more projected to be regular D linemen. So most of the time, it's more of a linebacker guy coming out of high school.
Coach, Cade Curry, go back to him a second.
Yeah.
I asked Ryan Day about him on signing day way back in the day, but he seems to have like a lot of things going for him, including that nasty streak. I don't know if that's the right word you would use, but what just jumped out at you from the get-go about this young man?
His first step. I think his first step. Some of the things I saw him do in pass rush, turning the corner, really impressive. You know, and then yeah, he's kind of surly. You know, a little bit in that a lot like Jack. You know, I mean those guys seem to be, you know, and I like that kind of personality. So yeah, he's got a quick first step. And he's a little surly. That equals potential greatness. Is he a Philly guy? Yeah, he's a Philly guy. Yeah, he can work.
When you mentioned, and sorry to go back to the linebackers, but when you mentioned the multiplicity and things like that, is that something that you can see? Like, do you project on a high school recruits, or is that something that, I mean, they're kind of already expected to do is a little bit of everything?
No, I mean, you have to project it. You do. You got to project it. You got to just take an inventory of the guy's skills, and then get to know him, to understand his demeanor, his football intelligence. But it's something to project, because it's not a typical, in our system, not a typical, hey, you're an inside linebacker, you're an outside linebacker. You got to be able to do everything, so it is more of a projection.
Is it like big picture of the entire defense?
Absolutely, yeah. Where does how much football does a guy understand?
How do you feel about the interior defensive line?
I feel great. Like it's there's a lot of guys competing. There's a lot of guys who showed the ability to make plays. Guys who have experience. I think it's just a great mix. You know, it's good. We're going to be able to do a lot of good things.
Sean Vinton, obviously, five-star guys had a lot of injuries to deal with. Played well in the Rose Bowl. How do you play in the spring? What do you think his impact will be?
I think Teron is going to be great. I mean, he's got experience, like you said, but he was showed great leadership, great attitude. You know, open to the process, wanting to learn the new system, and he's smart. You know, he picked things up quickly. So I think the sky's the limit for him.
And Tyleek's a guy, Tyleek Williams, a guy that they really haven't had around here at defensive tackle, a bigger defensive tackle. Most of the D tackles here have been right around 300 pounds. What do you think he can bring to the table this year?
I think he has a presence in there, like you said, that is a little bit different. That's really effective for what we do. I think he's going to function really well in this system. We'll be able to put him places, that fit his skills.
You've been around for a while. Is finding that A-gap dude that can attack, that's huge, that has good feet, is that as tough in the recruiting world as finding a quarterback that's stellar? I mean, how would you describe it?
I don't know. I mean, I have been less of size and spacey more than just really first step and quickness and attacking mentality. So those guys are always hard to find. But I think I always have erred to the side of being more aggressive, kind of like Mike. I thought he did some great things for at that position. He gets off the ball fast, and to me that creates as much problems as some dude who's just sitting in there at 350 and can't be moved.
Deal with this, right?
Fits more my personality.
If you can find the rare guy, as Tim said, who is 330 or 340 or 350, but has the athleticism, right, has the step too, what does that do for a team? I mean, Georgia had a couple of those guys last year. They are rare, but what does it do?
It changes everything, right? Because now you can always count on the double team, so you can program, okay, they're going to have to double team this guy, and now you can program someone else to be free because they're going to have to commit too, and when you can find that, it's great for all the surrounding areas of the defense.
And as Dave was saying, like Tyleek, a little bit of that, maybe that kind of potential.
We'll see. He's got potential. Absolutely, he has potential. We got to go out there and prove it.
Coach, can I ask you something totally different? What is it like wearing this badge, the Ohio State badge? When you're, like I'm seeing these tweets showing you in Marlin, Texas. Which you and I may be the only two people know where Marlin is.
Right.
Manny, Louisiana, same thing. But when I'm not trying to get you to disparage any place else you can, but let me ask you, what is it wearing the Ohio State badge? Does it get you in places too that people know where you're coming from?
High school coaches are great. They try to treat all of us the same. They really do, because the opportunities for their players.
Tanner can stay on the field in 12.
He did it a bunch. You go back and watch our film, Oklahoma State. He did it. He stayed on the field a bunch of 12. Because a lot of people are taking 12 and making it into look like.
I love the fake 12 discussion. I think that's so interesting.
Everything. Right. So now you start you start to substitute. Then they're going to take their 12 people and try to make it into 11 because you got substitution personnel.
Even these guys do.
Yeah, same thing.
Finish one last thing, like I said, about getting the room wearing the Ohio State badge. I'm asking this with all due respect for the places you're operating. Are you going into a more talented? Are you dealing with higher star guys?
Absolutely.
When you're recruiting, how does that play out? I guess
Well, the reputation of Ohio State and Coach Day and Coach Schmidt and everything that's been built here, that reputation automatically puts you. You're able to deal with any recruit that you want, the best in the country, and they're responsive because they know that Ohio State is going to help them accomplish their goals. So it's an entree to anyone.
How does it change your, for law and another term, spirit, though? You understand what I'm saying? There's a difference between recruiting a 3-star, I would think, and a 5-star.
That's right. You're saying, hey, look, here's, I look at coach like coming from the word stagecoach, like carry someone from point A to point B. So now you're saying, look, here's for these top level guys, right? Their pay, so to speak, is what I can do for them, right? To carry them from point A to point B. So they have to look at it and say, what's this guy? What are you going to do for me? And I'm able to say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you in these positions. And oh, by the way, we're also going to win a national championship. And that's something that you can't say.
Yeah, I've heard that now.
Late in spring, Tanner, thanks for talking to us a little bit about speed which you installed for the defense here was faster than an Oklahoma State. I guess why did you feel comfortable?
Well, you start slowly, and then you pick up pace based on what the guys can handle, and they could handle, and they overall as a group. And I'm sure it's a function of the culture that Coach Day has built. They have a football intelligence. So when they have a football intelligence about them, and they're interested in learning, and they have open minds, then you start to pick it up. You start to pick it up, and the more they're handling, the more you give them. So you have to go at the speed of the players, and I thought we had a bunch of guys who learned at a rapid pace.
It wasn't necessarily something you planned like in February going.
No, you can't. I mean, when you do that, I think that's when you get in trouble. You have to go at the pace of. You have to teach at the pace of the student. So yeah, I have plans. I have a layout of how I want to do it, but how fast I do it is based on how quickly they learn.
Is there a moment you could tell they were like getting up quickly? Like, how did you know they were like able to retain info and?
It's day to day. You have to go back and look at the video every day because what you see on the field is what counts, right? The answers they can get back to you at the meetings and how we teach, great. Now you have to see it on the field. When you see it on film, then you know that's real evidence that, okay, they're learning.
Where does Zach Harrison, you think, fit in with your defense?
Oh, we talked about him. I think he's got that leadership. He has a personality that I like. I like his length, and some of the things he did in the spring at the point of attack. I think he's really strong.
Can you play inside?
You'd have to ask Coach Johnson that, but I don't think we've done that with him.
Can he do jack things?
I think he could. We haven't really tried him there yet, but I think he has that potential. I don't know if that would be his best thing to do, but I haven't seen enough yet, but I think he has that potential.
We're just trying, we're trying to understand your defense. We're trying to understand the personnel here.
Right.
It feels like, Jack Sawyer, he certainly can do Jack things. Maybe JT, maybe he's not, maybe he's the other defensive end a little more. And then Zach Harrison, where does he fit in there? I'm just trying to, as you move the chess pieces around, how you envision those ends.
Well, that's your job. That's what you do, right?
But I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
But that's good. I can't give you the whole thing. I can't give the whole thing away, right? I got to keep you guessing a little bit on our opponents.
That's crazy or that's wrong.
Yeah, we'll smoke a cigar and talk about it off the record. But right now there needs to be some mystery to it. I think you're thinking about the right things, and I think that's the fun part of having a defense like this is you can be creative. Any fan, you're knowledgeable of sport. You can be creative, and we want that. We want everyone in the defense to feel that kind of power. Like, man, we got a lot of tools. We got a lot of things that we can do.
So this is a philosophical question, and it's you're talking about this is Ohio State. It's just a little bit different than where you were. Is there a difference as a coach? At Oklahoma State, you guys had one of the very best defenses in the country last year. But you look at the NFL draft, which isn't the end-all be-all, but your highest defensive pick was Malcolm went the 6th round. And I know you think Malcolm Rodriguez is as good of a defensive player as you could ask for. Is there a difference as a coach between sort of elevating your talent versus maybe there is a lot of talent and you want to take advantage of the talent? And I don't know if you know, when Joe Tiller started throwing the ball around at Purdue, it felt like, hey, they're going to play this way to try to elevate themselves. And now all of a sudden, places with tremendous talent 20 years later are running a similar kind of offense with 5-star guys.
Right. I think I'm coming to Ohio State and saying, hey, I want to be able to work this system with the best players in the country. You know what I mean? And then my job is to make them better. From wherever they start, my job is to help them grow to be the best they can. I thought we did that with Malcolm and Devin, and they both ended up being draft picks. They didn't have those stars. Now at Ohio State, you can get the guys with the best metrics, the best measurables, and you can do the same thing and grow them. And because those measurables and those metrics are viewed differently by the NFL, they'll have a chance to be, drafted higher.
But does your scheme? You said you pride yourself on always adjusting to
Yes.
new plays.
Yes.
What you do schematically, what you did at Oklahoma State schematically, and now what you'll do at Ohio State. In the end, basically the same thing. Pretty similar.
I mean, you hope so.
Maybe-
You hope
okay,
so
yeah.
because you have to. Again, change is important. We'll see, but you hope so because we had great success.
Yes.
And those guys being 6th round draft picks, that's great. But if you looked at their production, their production is as good as anybody in the draft. So now, here we're going to have guys that maybe they have better measurables, but hopefully their production is going to be as good as anybody in the country. So that's what elevates. That's what elevates.
Kind of follow that the Purdue example. Say like the Purdue, that's sort of like an underdog offense. And so maybe we could look at your defense being like that was designed to take advantage of the personnel. But I'm curious, and was it that, or was it more just an answer to what offenses are doing?
It was an answer to what offenses are doing. I think ultimately, a good carpenter doesn't complain about his tools. So even if you're not at a place where maybe you have players that aren't 4-star or 5 stars, you put together the best system to handle. I'm always looking at offenses, what they're doing, what they're trending, what they're, and you need to have an interest for that. The level of your players, better players, great. But I mean, you still need to have the answers to what they're doing. Yeah.
What's your brain as well?
I'm all over the place. I don't have enough. My mind is filled with football stuff, so I try to just keep it open to cigars.